Well, Amazonia generally, well, since the war in Amazonia erupted in 2016, the nation of Amazonia has been gripped by a growing pattern of violence and human rights abuses, perpetrated largely by the colonial forces from La Republic to Cameroon. The conflict, rooted in historical injustices and the quest for self-determination by the peoples of Amazonia, has escalated into a brutal clash between colonial military and Amazonian forces since 2017. The Amazonian struggle for liberation has been met with heavy-handed responses from the La Republic government, with numerous reports of extrajudicial killings, arbitrary arrests, torture, and the targeting of innocent civilians whom colonial forces would later tag to be supporting the Amazonian cause. Nowhere in the world to is it illegal to strive for self-determination, especially of a country who once had their independence and sovereignty. Well, amid the chaos, the civilian populations bears the brunt of this violence, often caught in the crossfire between the two warring sides. Well, in this report, we hope to highlight the increasing excesses of the colonial forces, which have only intensified in recent years. One such tragic case is the gruesome killing of a certain Hubert, a popular welder in Bamali village, which is a stark reminder and a stark example of the indiscriminate violence by the colonial forces that has become all too common in the region. Well, on Wednesday, September 18th, 2024, the village of Bamali was plunged into sorrow and fear following the brutal killing of Hubert, a respected local welder. Hubert's only crime, it appears, was being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Earlier that day, boys suspected to be part of the Amazonian State Army had asked Hubert for a ride on his motorcycle, innocently obliging Hubert to drop them off at their destination, unaware that this act would soon seal his fate. Later that day, colonial forces from the La Republic government, likely tipped off or tracking the activities of the fighters, descended on Hubert. According to eyewitness reports from Bamali, Hubert was arrested by the colonial soldiers, tortured, and dragged onto the highway by their military truck. His lifeless body was later discarded at Three Corners, Bamali, a gruesome spectacle that has sent shockwaves through the entire community. Despite the trauma and danger, Hubert's family managed to retrieve his body for burial the following day, which was on Thursday, September 19th, 2024. Eyewitnesses and close associates have attested that Hubert, like other executed Amazonians, had no known affiliations with the Amazonian fighters or any active involvement in the conflict. He was a civilian, an artisan who made a living through honest work. Yet, in the increasingly tense and paranoid atmosphere of a war-torn region, even an act as simple as offering a ride to someone can be viewed as collaboration with the Amazonian forces, resulting in deadly consequences. Well, on the other hand, we're wondering where the execution of civilians is the answer to any purported crime that civilians carry out. When the military in any part of the world execute on sight an unarmed civilian who hasn't even been charged with anything. These acts of impunity are only emblematic of a broader pattern of human rights violations by the colonial forces in Amazonia. It only reflects the extent to which colonial forces will go to stifle any perceived support for the genuine cause of Amazonia, a just cause, even if it means this colonial forces punishing innocent civilians and carrying out these executions. Hubert's case is just one of many that speak to the indiscriminate brutality employed by the colonial La Republic forces, whose actions further alienate the local population and fuel resentment against the colonial government and their forces, these forces that the colonial government represents. Well, the war in Amazonia is far from a mere territorial dispute. It is a deeply rooted conflict with human life caught in the wake of it. The ongoing violence, particularly the excesses committed by the colonial forces of La Republic, is exacerbating the suffering of civilians like Hubert. As more cases of extrajudicial killings and human rights abuses come to light, we await a time when the international community will take a stand. Accountability for these violations is crucial if there is to be any hope for peace and justice in the nation of Ambazonia. Only with greater awareness and international pressure can this cycle of violence be broken and the people of Ambazonia afforded the justice and freedom they have long sought. Mr. Paddy, you see yet another case of extrajudicial killings, executions by the colonial forces.